AM 1240, 95.3 FM, WJON. This is Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuve Medical. My guest today is Kari Collett, registered dietitian, A to Zinc Nutrition. Today, talking about diets. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The low-carb and or low-calorie diet. What is this?
Well, basically, you just keep eating what you normally would eat, but you cut down your portions, or you take out your highest calorie type foods. It's probably, well, and with the low-carb piece of it, then you're also cutting out things that people would consider bad carbs, like breads and pastas and things like that. So there's, I mean, that can be effective too, but it's less focused on whole food eating, which I'm a fan of, and so I don't see a lot of value in just the low carb, low calorie diet.
That doesn't work?
It can, but it's just so it doesn't focus on the health value of it. It strictly focuses on calorie restriction, which, you know, has its pros and cons. It can put your body into some significant stress to calorie restrict, depending on how you're doing it. I mean, obviously there's value in that, because if you lose weight, that's going to be better for your health. But it can also be stressful for your body, so you need to be smart about how you're doing it.
Of the three ones we were talking about, the keto, the intermittent fasting, and the low carb, low calorie diets, which is most effective for losing weight?
The only diet that's most effective for losing weight is the one you stick to.
Okay, so that's really it.
Right.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. One, I mean, can be because everybody's different, and everybody
Absolutely.
might gravitate toward different diets and have more success with them. That's a good answer.
Thank
How about let's get to some of the healthiest diets that are out there,
Okay,
ones
sure.
that you can get behind. Starting off with the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Mediterranean diet for a lot of reasons. It's definitely whole food focused, which you hear that from me all the time. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices like that. The other advantage it has is that it incorporates good fatty acids. So we hear a lot about olive oil and salmon and things like that on a Mediterranean diet, because we need fatty acids to function, and they're good for reduction in inflammation. They're good for immune function, hormone function, all kinds of things. So that I like. It also focuses on less dairy and less red meat. Now, that's in general beneficial for people, but not everybody has to stay away from those either. So it could be more restricted than it needs to be for some.
But if you just go with whole foods, is that the same as the Mediterranean? How is that different than just doing whole foods?
So I think the Mediterranean, the key piece of that is that it focuses on the fatty acids. So eating the salmon, the olives, the nuts, things like that are fatty acid containing. And then with the Mediterranean diet, of course, we also hear a little bit about wine. There aren't a lot of other diets that really kind of promote that.
So that's probably why it has that name.
Yep. Yeah. So, and of course, and even the Mediterranean diet, if you research it, it does tell you wine is included, but be cautious about it, because there's drawbacks to consuming wine too.
You could consume too much.
You can. Yeah, absolutely. And,
Sure.
and it might help your heart problem, but it also promotes cancer growth. So you have to think about all of the components,
Is
whether
it
or
red
not
wine?
they're right for you. Yep.
White? It's red wine.
Yep. It
Okay.
is.
How about the dietary approaches to stop hypertension? DASH.
Yeah, this is called the DASH diet, and again, this is another fairly good diet. It's mostly whole food focused. It's fruits and vegetables, but what's different about the DASH diet compared to the Mediterranean is this one actually incorporates dairy, but their focus is low fat dairy. Well, with all of my training, I know that dairy can be problematic for people in general, whether it's high fat or low fat. So that one causes me a little bit of caution. They also caution you on, grains and meats and nuts. And I'm not really sure why, except that maybe because it's so low sodium focused, maybe they understand that those are either naturally high in sodium or sodium added. Like especially nuts could have sodium added to them.
So what kind of meats and grains and nuts are we talking about?
So in this case, unlike the Mediterranean, which says really limit red meat, this one really just says eat all types of meat, but in moderation. So it allows, some poultry, some pork, some red meat, some egg, that kind of thing.
And it's good for blood pressure prevention?
Yeah, that's really who it's targeted to. So people that have high blood pressure would benefit from this, because the key piece of it is low sodium. And really, but if you just eat a whole food diet, that's just naturally low sodium. And then you can eat, all those things that are ideal for you, not just, what DASH says you should.
And it allows up to 5 sweets per week?
Yeah, that
Really?
did surprise me. I know, that's exactly what I thought too. Like, oh, okay. So we're going to prevent hypertension, but yet sweets can promote weight gain, which in turn promotes hypertension. And especially if you're not making your sweets homemade, those can be pretty high in sodium. So I was a little surprised to see that too, and I'm not a fan of that. Really.
So that could fly in the face. It's almost like
Yeah.
that's your reward. And we've had
Yeah.
conversations that using food as reward can be a slippery slope.
It can be, absolutely.
How about the flexitarian plant-based diet?
So I'm a fairly big fan of this one. It's plant-based, which we know worldwide, as we've studied different populations that eat plant-based diets, that people that eat the most plants have the least heart disease, the least cancer, the least diabetes. I mean, it's really targeted to, if you want complete health and wellness without restricting something, this is the way to go, because now you can eat all plants. You can eat fruits and vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds in abundance, and then on a rare occasion have a side of meat and not make that your mainstay. So you still get the pros and cons of eating meat, but it's not something you have to completely restrict.
So you're not a vegetarian.
Right. It's not a vegetarian, but it is very plant-based.
Are there any diets on here that would be vegetarian, where you would just decide, I'm just done with meat? Or is that not a good way to go?
So that would be the next step after the plant-based diet or the flexitarian diet. You could go completely vegan if you wanted to. I personally wouldn't do that, and I don't advise that. There are a lot of people that do really well on vegan diets, but then there are people that actually their health worsens on a vegan diet because they're not understanding it. They don't do it the way it is intended to be done.
Today, talking about diets. Now, we didn't talk about the paleo diet.
Right. We kind of skipped over that.
How do you
didn't
feel
we?
about that one?
Well, I think that one can be good too. Again, that one can be whole food focused. I think a lot of people misunderstand it when they hear paleo. You know, we think back to the caveman, and really the caveman wasn't hunting, but I mean, they were hunting, but they weren't always killing things, right? So meat wasn't really a part of their everyday diet. So paleo can oftentimes be misunderstood as a high protein diet when really it's more about what did those people gather. So then when we look at the foods from 100 years ago, 200 years ago to now, they're very different. You can call it a paleo diet, but truly to actually get to a paleo diet, it's almost impossible. So one example is blueberries. Blueberries now, we're not eating wild blueberries, are we? We're just not. Wild blueberries are teeny tiny. They're tart because they're not loaded with sugar like our grown ones. And so we're really not ever going to come to a true paleo diet because our blueberries are nice, juicy, and plump and sweet. And I mean, they're delightful, right? Because we've grown them to become that. So it's misunderstood. I think it can have value if it's done correctly with whole foods. But again, it also eliminates specific food groups. Like it says no grains and no dairy. Well, that just eliminates then potential for good things to come from those food groups.
Do you know anything about the South Beach diet?
Not as much. I know that one is really weight loss focused,
Sure.
but yeah, not a fan of that one either, really.
Okay. How about the whole idea of diet mentality?
Yeah. I think people need to dump it.
Just
really.
get rid of it.
Yeah, really. Your focus should just be, number one, whole foods. And don't worry about what's right or wrong. Just eat whole foods. And then look at, making changes a little bit at a time and permanently. So when I first started on a diet journey, 15, 20 years ago now, the first thing I did was take out MSG. That's all I did. And I didn't buy any products anymore with MSG. And then once I got really good at that, then I took out food coloring. And then I took out food preservatives and things like that. And slowly but surely, my diet changed because of what I bought changed, what I put in my cupboards changed, what I made from scratch started to increase. And so I gradually made those changes, but they became permanent because I did it gradually.
Why are whole foods more expensive in a lot of cases?
Yeah.
Than other foods, processed foods?
I would probably argue that they're actually not, but people don't do that price comparison, and you want to compare it in a way that's just not as black and white as what we see in the grocery store. So compare your broccoli with cheese in a frozen package to just a fresh head of broccoli. What are you getting calorie for calorie? What does it actually cost for calorie? What kind of vitamins and minerals are you getting for those dollars?
Because the
It's hard
combination, you buy the
comparison.
broccoli with cheese, that's going to be more expensive than just the broccoli.
Right, exactly. And so you should just eat the broccoli. And then you're getting so many more benefits from just the broccoli than you are the broccoli with cheese. So the hard part of that comparison is, what is the health cost, right? So as I have looked at different studies before with related to diabetes, is it can cost, $300,000 a year in a population of people to take metformin, but only $1,200 for that same population to make lifestyle changes. And it's not even just food, it's lifestyle changes, which includes food, but it's significantly less expensive.
So if you do as you suggest, just dump the diet, how do you monitor what you eat? Because like you said, we all have diets.
Yep.
We all have something that we eat,
Yep.
but it doesn't have to be looked at as a diet.
Yeah. You just want to eat intuitively. You want to, pay attention to when you get hungry and respond to that. Don't let yourself get starving, because then that's when we get into problems of binging. And then pay attention to how you're feeling when you eat. So pay attention to when are you feeling like you're satisfied. You don't have to eat until you're full. Eat until you're satisfied, and then be done, and be thankful and mindful of your meal. If you eat with intention and you take your time at it in a good eating environment, that's going to have a different outcome than if you're rushing and eating, like you just said, a Whopper in the car or something like that.
Yeah, we were talking about that off the air. I didn't know we were going to bring that up, but
right.
okay. But anyway, what we eat certainly is going to impact how we feel.
Absolutely.
And we've had a lot of discussions about that. If you start eating whole foods and changing your diet and be mindful of putting good things into your body, how is that going to change your overall feeling on life? Yeah,
you're just going to feel good. You're going to have a better attitude. You're going to have better cognition. You're going to have, maybe that less brain fog. And of course, in my field, we drill down to the very specifics. We figure out even those whole healthy foods for the general population, which ones are causing inflammation. But overall, if you're just eating whole food over processed, you're going to have less inflammation. You're going to function better, feel better. And most people then are motivated to not go back to those other foods just based on how they feel.
How much can help make a difference?
Well, in my patients, it makes all the difference, because usually they have struggled for years before they come see me, and I just narrow it down, and within 10 days, they can have anywhere from 25 to 75% improvement in symptoms. So help, expertise that's trained and understands it to specifically you, it makes a big difference.
Is it that we, in a lot of cases, can't do it on our own because it's difficult, because we don't have a plan? We're like, I know to eat better, but I don't know specifically how I'm supposed to do it. There's
too many variables. You're right. And the variables are genetics, lifestyle, environment, food access, budget, I guess even intellectual capacity to understand things. If I can make it easy for you to understand, you're going to do better, right? Because there's just so much information out there. Sorting out and presenting to you only what you need keeps it clean and simple.
Kari, if people would like to make a difference and maybe get some help from you, how can they contact you?
They can go to my website, atozincnutrition.com, and I have a free 15-minute consult that they can schedule right online.
Excellent. Kari, thank you.
Thank you.
Kari Collett, registered dietitian, A to Zinc Nutrition. This has been Health Matters on WJON. We return next week at this time.